Thank you for joining us tonight. We're going to talk about the art of scaling your landscape and snow business profitably. And today I got Carla Policastro along here with me. My name is Joe Policastro. We're the co-founders of Cycle CPA. We do remote bookkeeping and CFO services for green industry businesses across the country. And we have and for those of you that have joined us in the past, in our past webinars, we try to do these around every month or couple months. And, but we're really excited to have this guest on today. And, he's very active within the industry, and to kick things off, we'd first like to show a quick video here. All right, so we're going to be welcoming Joshua here. And from very humble beginnings, Joshua Stephen Gamez started his own landscape business at the age of 16. At the age of 22, he became the first franchisee of U.S. Lawns in the state of Pennsylvania. Within 2 years, he exceeded $1 million in sales, quickly outgrowing the U.S. Lawns model. He knew he could do more. Thus, Joshua left U.S. Lawns in 2014, and while honoring his non-compete with U.S. Lawns, spent the next 2 years building the framework for his next venture. Now CEO of East Coast Facilities, Joshua Gamez leads one of the market's most dynamic facility maintenance firms in the United States. an organization that serves Fortune 500 clients in multiple states. As such, Joshua is a champion of blue-collar workers, offers living wages, healthcare, and retirement benefits to his employees, which directly leads to substantially and excellence within his company. Additionally, Joshua is viewed as an industry expert amongst his peers, having been featured in numerous magazine articles and social media outlets alike. So today we'd like to introduce Joshua Gamez.
Thank you, sir, for having me tonight. It's an honor to be with both of you. Also to be able to have a nice discussion in front of those who joined us.
Awesome.
Nice to have you on.
Thank you, Joshua.
Yeah.
And to kick things off here, and I think, when it comes to, looking at a, landscape and snow business, a lot of it starts with finding the right customers. So, especially when you're scaling, that becomes key. Can you kind of walk us through and, some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's critical to be working for the right types of clients, and that doesn't matter if you are operating in a commercial corporate space, in a retail space, higher education, medical, whatever your clientele type is, wherever your niche is, whether that's you're a maintenance company, you're doing landscape construction work, you're partially snow, only snow. It's a universal rule that if you're not working for the right people, you're probably not going to enjoy life as much as you could, and you're certainly not going to make as much money as you could. So I think what's important is I had the opportunity when I was building the framework for ECF, when I was structuring the business model before we actually took it to market. I had the opportunity to learn from my previous business and the business operations that I had and that I had operated for many years. In fact, really multiple decades. And I was able to kind of step back and analyze and decide for what type of model I wanted to build, what was going to work for me and what wasn't. And one of the lessons that I learned that I definitely would like to share here with you, with everyone tonight, is know what your niche is going to be, know what services you're going to provide, know who it is that you want to serve, and then out of that group or that composite, try to find the right customers. Sometimes what happens is that we can run in many different directions, chasing down revenue, and we start to get outside of a niche. Now, we don't want to be like super niche, right? Because there's only so many Ferraris and Lamborghinis and manufacturers that have these micro niches. So being in a super niche can be a challenge in itself, but at the same time, we don't want to be so broad. You can look at lessons learned from like GM or Ford, where they just had so many models of cars at one point in time, and they scaled that back down. Like they adjusted. So I guess that's the first point that I want to make is, what is your model? And if you haven't thought about what your model is, take a step back and take a look at that and determine what services will you provide and which segment of the market might you go to. So let's just, maybe we're starting there. I don't want to do all the talking, of course, but that's a starting point, I think, for the conversation.
Yeah. And I think a lot of business owners might be scared to start off their business by, segmenting the market in that way, because they may be scared that they're losing out on some revenue.
Yeah, and that's fair. And so look, let's look at the reality of it, because I know what it's like to start up a business from scratch. And if you go back to the earliest part of my business days, when I was a teenager, I started out with a window cleaning bucket and brush in town, and that's how I started. So, at that time, maybe my favorite customer was a ground level storefront with big picture glass and no panes that you have to try to clean the glass in between the panes. That was maybe my go-to customer that I wanted. But did I take the ones along the way that were, you had to move all the merchandise out of the way of the windows, or I had to clean those little panes, or I had to go up a second level that I couldn't reach so well. Yeah, I had to. So I think what's important is making the plan, thinking about what your model is, what's your goal for your business. But it's okay as you're building your business. Yeah, you look, we have to eat, right? So maybe your business is going to be landscape maintenance. And maybe you're not going to do landscape construction, but along the way, somebody you trust, somebody you know says, hey, I want you to put this patio in for me and I know you can do it. Well, maybe you need the revenue. That I'm not saying that's not okay. I'm just saying, take a step back, formulate a plan. I mean, we're going to dig into this a little bit more, but formulate a plan. Make sure that you have a defined model that you can drive. And I just want to comment on what our model is in East Coast facilities. And I'm not suggesting it should be your model, meaning those who are listening, but our model is we are an industrial snow removal company. We tell customers in the South Florida market, in the tropics, that we are an industrial snow removal company. Everything else we do wraps around it. One of our selling advantages in tropical markets is to say, we have the resources to deliver really dynamic curb appeal because you're supporting with diversified revenue, the core of our business. It's very, very important business for us, right? But that's our model. So we know what our model is. And so we don't do retail for snow. We don't do small retail or big box retail. There's certain, we don't do HOAs. We don't do condos. We do industrial snow removal, but that's our niche. Right. And we've stuck to it. And we've turned down a lot of opportunities along the way that didn't make sense for us. So, so knowing your model is really key. And I think, we could probably maybe talk a little bit about, then what does it mean once you've identified that to find the right customer? That's the next step.
Absolutely. Yeah. And, I think knowing a specific market, a specific niche well, does that give you a better ability to then price that and have a better understanding on the pricing strategy?
Well, yes. Yes, but maybe in more ways than we might conclude, because in our niche, in industrial snow removal, we know how to price it, but we've also built all of our infrastructure to deliver that service. Right. And so now all of the infrastructure that we have, it's set up for specifically in mind to cater to those customers and their needs. And it allows us to be balanced with our fixed overheads, right? So like our buildings or our fleet that we've agreed and signed notes on, the managers, these are all kind of fixed overheads that don't come and go like materials or labor on a job. And so it's allowed us to build an infrastructure that's going to cater to that customer, which then affects our pricing because it allows us to be competitive and drive cash flow, drive the right margins because we made a plan and we're sticking to it.
Absolutely. So you know your expenses very well for that specific niche, whereas other companies, they may not see it as maybe a separate division, or it may be something new for them, so they're not as sure about all those expenses that truly have to recoup. And do you see many companies that try to enter that market or a specific niche, and maybe they don't have an understanding, they feel like they can price it maybe too low, and whereas maybe you're looking at it from what it sounds like more of a long-term approach, being able to be profitable in that way?
Yeah, that certainly happens. I know my margin isn't 50%, but I've seen we've seen people come in at 50% of our price, which is interesting. So I guess they're paying the customer to work for them. It happens. We purposely picked a niche that is incredibly difficult to do service delivery in. I picked a niche that requires millions and millions of dollars of capital to enter if you're going to do it the right way, to put the right amount of fleet and resources in place, because I didn't want to swim in the pool with 1,000 other fish. That was strategic. I could never have done that at the first go, but I was able to do it on the second go. But here's the deal is before today was yesterday, before today was the history of where I started. And I could tell you as a smaller operator, although I had to chase revenue at times, so that included, by the way, in my history, I would split firewood in the winter and sell it to Cracker Barrel restaurants to make some money in between snowstorms. And I personally split firewood and stacked it at Cracker Barrel restaurants. This is as recent as 2000. Okay, so I'm not talking the 50s here, right? This was something that I could say that it shows that we just, as business owners, we got to do what we have to do. But that wasn't the core, right? My core was making sure that I provided landscape maintenance services and snow removal services to commercial clients in those days. And I drove towards what my eventual goals are. So it takes a lot of discipline to do that. It might be good if we talk a little bit about just maybe like different customer profiles and a good customer versus a bad customer. I'm sure you've heard stories of, the difference. But I can give you some if you'd like to hear just some kind of experiences along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I did a ton of HOA work years ago before I started up ECF, a lot of HOA work, a lot of landscape maintenance in the HOA space. And, there were some really good communities where we had good relationships with the property managers and the board members who collectively we call the stakeholders, right? Property managers, board members, maybe there's landscape committee. These are all stakeholders. We also worked with some really, really problematic communities. And it's interesting that the most problematic customers, they represent a fraction of our revenue and take up 80% of our time. So I think it's really good if you can step back and look at your customer portfolio, your customers, and it doesn't matter if you're cutting residential grass. If you have 10 customers you're cutting grass for, or you have 100 corporate centers you're cutting grass and plowing snow for. Either way, same principle. Step back, look at your customer list and really do an analysis and chart it out on an Excel spreadsheet or something. Put the amount of percentage of time that your management team puts into each customer, and then draw a line across to the revenue and do some basic math and see where your time's going. And if it's really worth it, you're going to be surprised what you find, I promise you. I don't want to just pick on HOAs because, there's some really pain in the ass, commercial, corporate, sophisticated buyers that also are not worth working for. And it's interesting that some of the biggest and most sexy corporations in the United States have very snobby, arrogant buyers or facilities representatives that they're not for me. I can tell you that, not with our culture. So I think we should find customers that value what we do, that we have a good, we've got a good relationship, good communication, that are reasonably loyal to us because we understand our customers need to buy on value and price is a part of value, so reasonably loyal and fair to us. But that's a really, really good start. And then it comes down to like a game of numbers. If you're looking for more good customers, how are you getting them? Are you getting them through referrals, which is the best way? Are you getting them through some type of marketing effort? Do you have salespeople on the ground? If it takes this much effort to get one customer and you want 5, then you need to draw up a plan to put in this much effort to get the 5. Activity leads to results when it comes to sales. And a person who's fishing, for instance, if you put 1 line in the water versus 5 or 10 or 15 lines, you're going to have a much better chance of bringing in fish and the right fish. So activity will lead to results. And the more opportunities you have, the more selective you can be with your customers.
Yeah, I love that last comment because I think not having a lot of leads and a lot of opportunities and being out there in the community puts you in a more vulnerable position, as you were mentioning, if you're able to keep that lead flow and sales up, then you're able to be more selective. And I think it, a lot of it, unfortunately does rely on that. And do you see a lot of companies, I'm very interested to hear your perspective on this, when it comes to some of those larger companies, as you were mentioning, even some of the Fortune 500 companies, almost acting as bullies in the,
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I remember being, younger, still kind of young. I'm 44, but I've got a lot of gray hair now. I've earned it. I can remember some customers that really bullied me and bullied my business and my team over the years. And I got to tell you, I've been there. I've been in that seat that you just have to take it because you got to pay your bills. And it's really sad. It's really sad.
Yeah.
Most of us have been there as business owners. Today, that's not the case. Now, that's not to mean that we don't provide dynamic service and we don't have a humble approach to delivering service. But when a customer's bad meat, as we call it, they're bad meat. And some customers need to be fired. I was, my most recent speaking engagement in Ohio, I told our friends there in the audience, I said, I want you to know that you can fire a customer and you can tell them I said so, because it's okay to fire bad customers. So to answer your question, yes, I've seen that. It's very unfortunate.
Yeah, absolutely. And so now we're gonna take a little deeper look into East Coast facilities here. So here we go. All right.
Thanks for the break.
Absolutely. And thank you, Josh, for sharing some of that insight there, when it comes to, trying to find the right customer and then also, pricing it right. And, and then I guess now shifting. So when it comes to scaling in a profitable way, which I think that there's two major differences in that, but really how to transition from being that owner operator, and building that management team, or maybe you already have started to build out a management team, but how to continue that in a profitable way. What are some things, Joshua, I guess, right off the bat, that you would recommend, or, any things you would, tell someone, going through this phase in their business?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a great topic. I would say that definitely some of the defining parts of my career have been figuring out how to build an operations management team, so that I'm not wearing all the hats myself. Figuring out how to build the administrative and finance team, which we have, and the most difficult for me, I'm giving you my personal experience, is how to build a good sales team. For me, the most difficult, because the problem with salespeople is is that you don't really know until a lot of time passes what's what. You really got to let them go. And then, not that you're not managing them along the way, but they're really going to show you what they're able to do over a period of time. And you've already invested tens of thousands more perhaps in them. So,
and what is, Josh, just a quick question on a topic. What is a rough time frame that you would generally give someone in a sales position to deliver?
These days are different than the old days. So I'll tell you, the old days, I would probably go a season and look at a season to really evaluate where they're at. But I figured out through metrics that you can manage sales personnel through their weekly, monthly, and quarterly activities. And so managing their activities with lead management, managing their activities with cold calling if it's out and about, managing the amount of time they're spending with prospects. I'll tell you the biggest mistake that gets made in the sales environment in building a sales team is salespeople in our industry, and perhaps in other industries, but this is the only industry I know. Salespeople get really excited about taking orders, meaning when they sign a deal with a customer who's already a customer that maybe just adds a location, or that customer just gives them more business. I mean, they're just so excited about taking orders. But what I want from my sales personnel, my outside sales personnel, is bring me a new customer. Don't show me the dollars of the customers already in the portfolio, right? So I would challenge anyone who's building a sales team, make your sales team. They need to be like hunters, bring in the carcass for the skinners. They need to be bringing in new business. And the illustration we use often is, it's like, I'm the restaurant owner, okay? And I hire a salesperson or a promoter, and I want them to bring customers to the restaurant. And at the door, we ask, oh, how did you come to the restaurant? Oh, well, I saw this marketing piece, or I saw this coupon, or okay. And that person did their job. They're getting people to come in the door. That's a really good salesperson. But then you have the waiter who took the order and he thinks he's in sales, but it doesn't matter. They're already sitting at the table. They're going to order something off the menu. You didn't sell anything. You're taking orders, right? So salespeople need to sell. It has taken me decades to figure out the sales game, and God help the market because I'm starting to really figure it out. But, you really got to have a well thought out plan if you're going to build a sales team. That's a bit of a long answer to your short question, but
no, great.
But kind of when you're in that owner operator phase and you're starting to think about an operations team, a sales team, do you have any recommendations on who you should hire first? Like who that full-time staff should be first?
Yeah, a great question. So let's keep me, I think would be maybe the most helpful. And I probably did, and this is without inflation. This is back 15, 18, maybe almost 20 years ago now, close to it. I was in the $3 to $4 million range in revenue at the time. And I didn't have a robust finance team, and I didn't have any salespeople at all.
Right.
Okay? I just had like one and a half people in the office working, So most of it was just me and my operations managers. I think if you're an owner and you're good at selling and you're a people person, that's where you need to go and fill the shoes of an operations manager, of an operator. Or if you're an operator that, you're really good in the field, but you're not too good at sales and relationships, you probably want to bring someone in sooner. So it kind of depends on the owner, first of all, I think. Because we all come from different cuts. I'm a promoter. I'm a people person. I'm comfortable around people. I love people. And I can sell because I feel like I'm natural with people. So for me, in my situation, I needed a good, operations manager, a person who could do the scheduling and order materials and help with dispatching out crews and checking job sites and things like that. What I would suggest to a person who's transitioning and they're having some challenge perhaps with, or they're working towards building that management team, is we have to get really good at delegating and empowering and following up with our management team. We need to mentor them. We need to coach them. We need to help and support them. But if we're not good at delegating, we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere. We're not going too far anyway. If we're not good at empowering, which means that we train our staff, we give them the tools they need, we give them the resources they need, and then send them off their way to do their jobs, they're not going to get very far, right? Yeah. So one exercise that could be done is, if I was an operator and I didn't have managers, but I had crew leaders and key guys in the field, you could take a step back today, whether you have one person, two people, three people, or 300 people. Take a step back today and just do a self-analysis and ask yourself, how good am I delegating? And when I do delegate, have I empowered those that I'm delegating to? Have I given them everything that they need reasonably to be successful in what it is I'm asking them to do? Mm-hmm. And third, how is my follow-up with them? Am I circling back around to check on what it is that I delegated to make sure it's getting done properly? That's, the old UPS line, inspect what you expect. But those are really three kind of bedrock principles. And we could start that with just one employee or two employees. Get really good at it. Become a master at it. If you can become a master of those things, man, you could grow a business if you want to.
Wow. Yeah, no, great. And, so what you're saying, Josh, is maybe before you go out and hire a salesperson or ops manager, or, you build out another department, you need to make sure that your company is designed to be able to train that person and have the processes in place and the systems to be able to support them in that role.
Yes. But depending on the size of the business and the complexity at which the business operates, those systems and processes may not be governed by a custom software like we've built in our company.
Right.
It could be a Word document with a flow chart. It could be a pad where you hand wrote out a bit of a flow chart, a process that everyone understands. As a business grows and scales, then those systems that define what to do and when to do it and how to do it, they'll become a little bit more sophisticated. But don't wait until, you get to some significant revenue before you put those things in place. You can start and you can do it in a simple way without overwhelming yourself.
Yeah. I feel like the earlier you start, although you may find it may be silly to start, you're like, I'm not going to show this. I only have one employee or two employees or however many. But if you build up enough processes or take enough videos, then it compiles into a larger training system along the way that you'll be able to implement.
And Josh, and then I guess one of the bottlenecks, and I know you had shared with us, Josh, that sales, finding salespeople, and that role is a bottleneck for you, and I guess looking at other bottlenecks, and I know you also had mentioned, you're building your own software, right? How are you using technology and software to help with efficiencies and help with growing and scaling?
Yeah. Talk about unfair advantages in a market, which I didn't have when I was splitting firewood for Cracker Barrel. But so two kind of sides to that question. I'll kind of answer it together. Again, I think owners can do a significant amount of selling, and the best way to sell is to do really good work, get referrals, and do really good work and keep your customers. Our retention rate, and this is no joke, our retention rate of customers over the past now we're at 5.5 years for ECF in all markets is like 99.5%. It's almost 100%. We have lost some locations for customers where they were sold off or something like that, but we have retained our customers. And when you keep your customers, you can grow a business. So I would say first, keep all your customers. Now, hiring a salesperson is to make sure that you have a well-defined job description. You know what the goals are for that person. You define them. You're able to support that person. What if you hire a salesperson? They go out and sell $2, $3, $4 million worth of revenue. I have a salesperson in a market right now that has almost a $2 million opportunity that probably will close. One opportunity with one salesperson. No joke. So how are you going to be able to fulfill that if they go out and sell that kind of work? So you have to have all this defined before you bring people in. Now, we could talk just about salespeople alone for a whole podcast or maybe 3 of them. But just high level stuff is be prepared. Have a plan. Know what it is you want to accomplish. Is it realistic? Can you do the selling yourself, or should you bring someone in? Do you have the tools and resources to support them? If they go out and sell the work, you're going to be able to fulfill it, right? These are all the pieces that need to be a good job description. You're going to have to do regular management, weekly check-in meetings at the minimum. You're going to have to look at metrics monthly, quarterly, certainly annually, and you're going to have to, in a loving way, manage your salespeople, or you're not going to get results. To the second part of your question about technology, I started 3 years ago. I have invested a lot of blood and treasure without the blood into our software platform called Omnia. Omnia is a Latin word for everything. And the reason that we named it Omnia is because I'm tired of having 13 logins to 13 different softwares that I need to do things. So we're just putting it all in one place and we're doing it all custom. We're 3 years into development. Our full-time team is based in India. Our project manager's name is Vinu in India. Our US-based full-time project manager and developer's name is Chris Gilroy. He's US-based. So we have 7 people on this team. It's a major investment for my family. It's being paid for by money made in the past, right? Just money we've made over the years. This system allows us to do all of our CRM management, all of our estimating. We have a complete estimating approval process in it so that when prices are delivered to prospective clients, they have the right margins on them. It's all controlled. It actually supports our salespeople because they get qualified pricing relatively quickly, and we can manage all their activity in one place. It's a very dynamic platform. It's constantly evolving and changing because it's under development. As I said, we have a full-time team on it. We just released a major release last week of a completely new CRM dashboard for the sales teams, new sales reports with KPIs and things that matter to us. And so it's really exciting to see the company develop, and we're moving really enterprise level to support our future growth.
Great. And I know you had touched on KPIs, and for anyone who's not sure what that is, it's key performance indicators. It's basically the metrics that are key. They're the important ones to track. And there's metrics and KPIs for all of your departments, right? And using that to hold your team accountable. What are some metrics or numbers that you use when you're scaling your divisions, Josh?
Yeah, well, there's a lot because there's different facets, right? We have operations and fulfillment, and then we have sales. There's a few that I like to look at. So if we're going outside of financial analysis, where we're looking at ratios of cost of labor to revenue and things like that's a whole I think a separate issue. Could be a long conversation, but it's kind of funny because we were doing budgeting, and we had budgeted fuel at 3.2% of gross revenue, and I think it's at 4.5. So. So we had to do some recasts on that line, but that's how specific we get, right, with that type of thing. So the same goes with operations or sales. Some things I'd throw at you, I'd want to look at are, I like to look at close ratios. So if we put, $1 million of paper on the street, and it's $10,000, $100,000 proposals, and we close half, right? We got a 50% close, right? So I like to look at the close rate because the cost of putting paper on the street is very expensive. And in the time that our sales team and the whole administrative support mechanism that goes into that can be very costly. So if our close ratios aren't right, it means that either we're not very good at delivering our value proposition, or we haven't really qualified the customer. Now we have a feature where we can track the reason why we lost the deal. And of course, there's an option that says buyer selected low price. And I just had this sermon in one of our service centers where I said, if you're constantly selecting buyer selected low price, then you have a problem qualifying, right? It's the point fingers still point back at you. So those are some KPIs in terms of sales that I look at: close ratios, and then the ratios of why lost. Those are some of my personal favorites. But if we went on the operational side, if I just threw one at you, one of my favorite is just employee retention, driving employee retention. I mean, I think everyone who follows me on social media knows I'm like frontline. If you really want to get me excited, we can talk about that all day because that's where my world is. But retention on frontline, if you have a lot of turnover, just look at yourself in the mirror. Don't blame people. Don't blame the industry. Don't blame H2B. Don't blame. What are you doing to recruit? And it goes back to the fishing lines. Do you have 20 lines in the water or just one line? Are you only starting to recruit when you realize you have an empty seat, or are you always recruiting? Are you always selling, by the way? I have an always series, always be plowing. That means I don't like plows up in the air when they're on job sites. They better be down and plowing. Always be selling, always be recruiting. Those are my always be series. So, those are a couple KPIs though. Retention is huge. Retention of personnel, frontline personnel is huge, but there's of course more.
Yeah. Can you tell us more about, when it comes to the frontline workers at East Coast facilities, and we do see it on social media as well, and just from hearing you as too, what are some things that really help to build up the culture there, when it comes to building up your frontline workers as well?
Yeah, number one is that we care about them, and that's not just some words. We are sincere about our care for people. That's just people who work in the company, and that's people who work outside the company. I'm a strong believer. I happen to have a Christian background. That's not to say that other religious beliefs are less or more. I'm just saying that's my background. And I happen to be a really strong believer that, if you should treat others the way you want to be treated, right? That's straight from the scripture. So I really believe in that. I believe in people. I think there's a lot of good people out there, and I think it's up to us to learn about people, their cultures, their backgrounds, their strengths, their weaknesses. And we only do that if we really care about people. So number one is sincerely caring about people, which of course erases and eliminates any ideas of racism and discrimination and misogyny and all these things that can happen in a workplace. Now, that being said, besides that is an appreciation that the blue collar worker, especially in the non-union space, does not have protections. And in this country, and in this industry, largely in the landscape industry, snow removal industry, many of the highest percentage of workers are minorities or immigrants, and they don't have the protections that a lot of the workforce does have in the United States. So we really want to make sure that our workforce has, as we call it, living wages. And this just means that we've done an analysis and we understand, what does it cost to live? Like, just to have a simple apartment, to be able to get to work, right? We're not talking about a penthouse in South Beach. Just what does it cost to live? What does it cost to get to work? Healthcare protections, planning for retirement, PTO. And as we've matured and we've been able to demand higher and higher prices for what we do. And I'll give you an example of that real quick. If, we come in to do a 3 or 4 million square foot facility for plowing. These are massive facilities. Only just a few companies can do that. So of course the margin goes up, right? Because not many people can put $1 or $2 million worth of iron on a single site. So, it's not to say that we're not being fair to the customer, being very fair, but it does demand a higher margin for the risk involved. But we've shared that with our workforce. Every employee in our company is protected with life insurance. If they were to lose their life in work or out of work, in work is a worker comp issue, but out of work, they would get a full year's salary because of the life insurance that we have for every single employee. And so we're really stepping back and we want to do more and more and more for our employees, not less. And that really will help. We kind of started this section talking about how to move from like an owner operator, kind of move your way up. If you don't take care of your workforce and you don't train your management team, your operations managers to take care of your workforce, you needed to do this before, let alone in this current market. This already needed to be happening. So we already had all this in place. This culture was in place. So when this economy started doing what it's doing now, where we have just such a shortage of workers, ECF was already set up.
Wow. So it seems like it can really be a competitive advantage to care.
Well, there's no competition when you can staff your business operations. There is not today. There's none. If you can staff your operations and tool them right now, buena suerte.
Awesome. Well, we're going to get to the Q&A portion here shortly. So if anyone has a question, definitely type it in the chat as well. And Josh, so, you're really caring for your team, right? And that definitely shows through the culture at ECF. But do you see that having a direct relationship with us, being with Cycle CPA, kind of have to ask these kind of questions. Do you see that having a direct effect on the profits of the company as well?
Yes. I would say that about 4% of our gross revenue goes toward benefit packages, which is maybe 4 to 5%. Which is a pretty substantial number. And if we didn't have the operations we had, it'd probably be 7 or 8%. Right. Just because of the type of operations we have. But let's say it's about that 4 to 5%. It's a significant amount of money. It's interesting because when I first came out of US Lawns, my royalty was 4% of revenue. And I said, I'm going to trade the royalty for benefits. I'm going to have the best workforce in the industry, and I'm going to crush everybody. So, that's Josh Gamez talk, right? But it was true. It worked. I just reallocated the spend, So, yes, it does. But think about it. If you can keep your people, you can keep your customers. If you can deliver awesome, consistent service, you can charge for that. It's not a problem. We go to our clients and we say, look, here's our price. Here's our cost of doing business. This is where our numbers come from. Decide, right? I mean, by the way, a lot of these big corporations, they care about this stuff when you can present it in a proper way. They care. Now, maybe your average homeowner may or may not, but some might. If you share with them, listen, I have to be a little more expensive. If you're telling the truth, they're going to know. They're going to see it in your eyes. I give this to my team. I give this to my team. And in turn, they help deliver great service to you. And so I'm asking you, please, to just pay me a little bit more so I can do what's right. And people will do it. A lot of people will do it.
Yeah. And it makes sense even from their perspective. It'll cost more for them if they choose a provider that isn't priced right, that isn't profitable over time because they're more likely to go out of business. They're not reliable or dependable. And I also thought it was really interesting, Josh. You had mentioned the 4%, right, of the gross profit. But then also
that's gross revenue, not off gross profit. So it's even
revenue. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. So, and then I think it's also kind of thinking differently, right? Because being with a company that prices right and retains their employees, it puts you in a position to do things like that.
Yes, and I believe no matter how big your business is, that's what you should be driving towards, is creating the best team you possibly can to deliver to the best customer portfolio you possibly can. And when you do those two things, you're going to win.
Yeah. And I think even going back to the beginning of the webinar as well, pricing right and finding the right customers and having the patience or the discipline to do that. I think that's what a lot of companies struggle with. But I think that it kind of does start with that.
It does, and it's something you can work towards. It's okay to split firewood and in between and do what you got to do. That's okay, and don't feel bad about it. I'd do it tomorrow if I had to, right?
Yeah.
But have a plan and work your plan.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Josh, for sharing all of this value here. Hope everyone's taking some notes. But I guess we'll shift to some of the questions. I guess to start, it looks like we have a question here. What are some of the ways that you market to your ideal customer? So marketing strategies.
Our number one way to market is on LinkedIn, if most people haven't noticed. And we do that in a very organic way. We actually do almost no paid advertising on LinkedIn. And I've said this before, and I'll continue to say it. If people saw the opportunities that come to us through LinkedIn, they would understand why we put so much effort into that marketing. Tremendous opportunity comes out of LinkedIn, both with clients and with recruiting talent. Besides that, our account executives do what most salespeople do. They work lead generation. They will ask our customers for referrals. They track when our customers or stakeholders move to different businesses or different locations. And so that's all part of marketing, as well as networking events. We do a lot of networking events, especially in Florida, a lot of networking events. It's a networking. South Florida it's like a party city, right? So everybody does business at a party. I think it's kind
doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, it's kind of fun as long as it's in moderation, but a lot of networking events. So that's a great way, happy hours, lunch and learns, things like that.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. Brad asked, what's the plan to prepare for this recession?
Yeah. Pay down debt. Make sure you have some cash, not too much because it's deflating in value. So apparently a plow truck was better to have on hand than a pile of cash, right? Who knew a used plow truck was going to go up 30% in value? Pay down debt, have some cash, diversify your client base, have a bulletproof AR management plan now before it even starts. Rein in customers that don't pay, get rid of them if they can't pay. You need to manage AR like never when this economy starts cycling down. And it's okay to right size. If this economy, which I think it's going to get really bad, by the way, I hate to be a Debbie Downer, but it is what it is. In America, we go through cycles. All the world economy and capital markets cycle, and we haven't let it cycle properly. So it's going to cycle, and it's okay to right size. I may go from X number of units in my fleet, and I might just right size it down for a period of time before I scale back up. We'll have to see what happens, but don't be afraid to right size your business.
Fantastic. And we have another question. So you had the initial company, right? And then now you're with East Coast Facilities as the CEO as well. What are some of the main things that you did differently the second time around?
So first of all, I'd like to say that some of those, especially the early years in U.S. Lawns, I loved them. I got a little bored with it because I did really outgrow their model, and I couldn't prove that then, but I certainly have proved it now. I outgrew their model, but in the beginning it was awesome, and overall I enjoyed being part of that business for those years. That being said, and I meant that what I just said. I just want to say that because I don't want to take anything away from U.S. Lawns franchisees that are in the system today or those who may enter the system. That being said, what I wanted to do differently is I wanted control of my brand, and I've kind of proven what I can do when I have control of a brand. I wanted to market differently. I wanted to tell the story differently. And so that was a big thing. I also didn't want to be restricted to a franchise territory. That is a big thing. And I wanted to move away from basically providing these services to all of these customer types. I wanted to provide these services to this customer type and really dial it in. So in non-snow markets, we're a little more broad. We do high-end HOA. We do luxury high-rise along the beach. We do things like that. We don't really do apartments or retail pretty much anywhere. But in snow markets, all industrial, corporate, commercial venues. So being more specific to who we were working for was really important for the execution of the model that we built.
Awesome. And we got another question here from Sammy. Would you please speak on the importance of hiring and training a dynamic workforce and how that improves culture and then the company revenue?
Ooh, it's a long answer to that. It's a great question, Sammy. Look, if there's an expression that I use often, I guess I could sum it this way to make it somewhat concise: train to retain. If you don't want to keep your employees, then don't train them. You got to train your people. Training starts at the point of hiring. Something that we do at East Coast facilities that I think is unique is the entire process of it is unique, I think, collectively, but we have a meaningful onboarding process that includes a full day of orientation videos where they literally just sit in a service center and they go through all type of orientation, and they take tests after every video that they have to score 100 on, or they're going back through the test before they even get to the field, to where they're with a field supervisor for a period of time before they even get permanently assigned to a crew. So start it off right, train to retain, and go back to what I said earlier is you have to care about people from your heart. You have to really care about people. You can't fake it till you make it. If you care about people, you're gonna get it done.
Awesome.
Fantastic. And we're just gonna have a couple more questions here. And Jensen says, is this the reason okay, so I don't.
Or what is the reason? What is the reason you don't do HOA in snow markets? Is it the labor required?
No, I mean, listen, I'm Mexican American. I can get as much labor as I need to. We need to, right? We speak Spanish, right? So there's no problem there. Listen, we can't do snow for HOAs. I don't even get involved in the HOA work that we have in South Florida because I think I have like post-traumatic stress syndrome from my old days doing snow and landscape and U.S. lawns for HOAs. I just can't take it. The unreasonableness, that they're not, you can never please them when it comes to snow removal. Most of these communities, and they'll just swap you. They're just not loyal. So it's not a good space for me in my culture, in my business. It's not a good place. It's not a good pond for me to swim in. It doesn't mean that it won't be good for others, but it's really hard to scale a business with in that market segment, in that vertical, especially in snow. It's about the snow. We could do the landscape maintenance, but you do snow with HOAs in the north. God bless you.
All right. Awesome. Well, I think that'll be it for the questions. And I guess, Josh, anything else you want to leave the community here with?
Well, maybe two things if I could. The first is, somewhere along the way, my Uncle Tim logged on and was watching this, and I haven't seen him in quite a while. He's in New Jersey, so he said hello. So hello, Uncle Tim. And I really wanted to mention that also because my grandfather, his father, who died in 2007, he actually kind of got our family started in the landscaping business, and he had a small landscaping business at a time where I think he had like one of the first Bobcat 48-inch walk behinds that came off the line, that long ago. And he had it at a time where there wasn't a Mexican in sight or any Hispanics in the industry. Nobody wore safety glasses. Nobody wore vests. So a really, really tough time period. So hello, Uncle Tim. Second thing is that we're talking kind of about how we can refine our businesses, expand our businesses, mature them, right, as operators. And I would like to say that I think and this is why I participate in podcasts like this, is let's try to help each other, in a meaningful way. Let's try to work together. Let's share ideas. It's okay to protect some trade secrets, and we don't have to open up our entire book of business, but we can work together. We can be professionals in the market. We can support one another. It's a tough business. I just think we need a little bit more of that from what I see. That's all I got for you.
Yeah. Oh, and before we go, can you please just fill everyone in, in regard to what you're doing with, the green industry workers?
Yeah. So right now, what I've started to do, and I held one, is I held a town hall meeting in Richmond where I kind of just launched the concept. And so what I'm going to do this year and into next year is I'm going to have a series of town hall meetings across the country in different markets. And I'm just going to talk on the topic. And the topic basically says, we've got all type of trade industries that's related to our industry that support business owners, that support suppliers. There's nothing for the workforce. There's nothing for the frontline workforce. So before I die, I will tell you there will be something for the frontline workforce. That's going to be my mission at the second half of my career. And what essentially it is it's a trade. It will be a trade association, the green industry workforce. And it's going to be built to help support our frontline workforce, educate them, but also educate employers and help the two sides really move the ball downfield when it comes to advancing the careers of frontline workers and protecting them in meaningful ways. Along the way, we look to tackle some issues like immigration reform and other things that do indeed affect our industry as employers and workers.
That's awesome stuff, Josh. And can people go to greenindustryworkers.org?
Yeah, they can go there now and sign up simply to get information, because right now we're just collecting really a mailing list. There will be a website that'll be revealed, and then we're going to have a very specific charter. But in the beginning here, it's really starting to build the awareness. And when the time is right and a board is in place, because this is not an ECF thing. It's not even a Joshua Gamez thing. It's just something that I'm taking the lead on currently, but I hope to be pulling in the same direction with a bunch of leaders like-minded and get it done.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. And, I appreciate you joining Joe and I. And, everything that you went through is just very eye-opening. And I'm sure everybody got some good tips. But yeah, thank you, Josh. And I hope everybody has a nice evening here.
Yeah, thank you for the privilege and for having me.
All right.
Take care.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.